Today, we take a closer look at how Typhoon Haiyan has traumatized children in the Philippines. According to UNICEF, 5.54 million children are affected by the disaster. Giving them a clean shelter, water, nutritious food, and a proper education are UN's top priority. It is also just as important for these children to remain as children, to have fun and play, so they can better cope with the trauma.
These children have just arrived in Manila from disaster areas.
No good very few things from the house, yes.
Typhoon Haiyan did not leave them with much to carry, and worse, they do not know when they can continue going to school. 7,000 schools are closed due to the storm. Many preschool children have taken shelter inside tents set up by UNICEF.
Stand up, feet together, dikit lang tingin. Hanggang this may the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Young girl met with 8 years old, lost 20 of her classmates and friends. I mean, how do you process that?
UNICEF specifically works on creating child-friendly spaces for children to get psychosocial support so they can play and be children while they're in this precarious situation.
5.54 million children are affected by the disaster, of which 1.4 million are forced to relocate.
We're working with the government and partners to respond in the areas of water, sanitation, hygiene, nutrition, education.
UNICEF is focusing its current effort on long-term recovery. By May of next year, $61.5 million are expected to be spent on disaster relief. At the request of the Philippine government, WHO has spent $2 million on vaccines to prevent measles and polio outbreaks.
It's very important to make sure we prevent any measles outbreaks. Also, polio has been eradicated in the Philippines, and we want to make sure that it doesn't come back.
Dr. Tsai Wenxin has just returned from the disaster areas. To her surprise, she discovered that most of the victims seem to be quite optimistic in spite of what has happened.
Perhaps due to their optimistic nature, they are recovering from the disaster better than we expected. After receiving the aid, their optimism and grateful nature are helping them cope with the trauma.
Though Dr. Tsai did not discover any children suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder in the free clinics that she helped out with, she still worries that the symptoms will surface if recovery does not begin quickly.
If a year later they still have problems dealing with the trauma, they will exhibit various behaviors. These include acting more alarmed when interacting with people, or even refraining from human interactions. Or perhaps they will have trouble focusing on a task. So I suggest that the schools should try to reopen as soon as possible.
The temporary learning spaces that we're putting in place, we're hoping to work with government so that this will improve the attendance in the future, to make sure that children don't miss out on their learning.
With the UN's assistance, the local Ministry of Education plans to reopen schools in the disaster areas in 4 stages. Some schools should be open by early December, while the rest should open by next January.